King Leopold II of Belgium, a monarch driven by ambition and a thirst for power, craved an empire. He envisioned a vast domain under his control, a personal fiefdom that would solidify his place in history. But unlike other European powers, he wanted it solely for himself, not for the glory or benefit of his country, Belgium. This was a personal quest, fueled by greed and a desire for absolute authority. He set his sights on the Congo, a land of immense natural resources and strategic importance. This territory was vastly larger than Belgium itself, a sprawling expanse of jungle, rivers, and untapped potential. It represented the ultimate prize for Leopold's imperial ambitions. To achieve his goals, he cleverly masked his true ambitions as a humanitarian mission, a noble endeavor to uplift the Congolese people. Leopold created a network of front organizations, seemingly dedicated to charitable causes and the betterment of African lives. These organizations publicly claimed to fight slavery, a prevalent issue at the time, and to bring civilization and progress to the so-called Dark Continent. But behind this facade of benevolence, Leopold was secretly plotting a ruthless scheme of exploitation, driven by greed and a complete disregard for human life. His carefully crafted PR campaign successfully fooled much of Europe and the United States, who were largely ignorant of his true intentions. This deception won him crucial diplomatic support and recognition for his claims in the Congo. The culmination of his efforts came at the Berlin Conference of 1884-85, a pivotal moment in the scramble for Africa. There, amidst the halls of power, without a single African voice or representative present, the fate of the Congo was decided. Leopold, through skillful manipulation and deceit, was granted personal ownership of the vast territory, which became known as the Congo Free State. He became the absolute ruler of millions of Congolese people, their lives and destinies now entirely in his hands. He was accountable to no one, free to govern as he pleased, with no oversight or external constraints. The lofty promises of progress, development, and protection that Leopold had so eloquently proclaimed were quickly abandoned and forgotten. Instead, the land and its people became his personal property, a source of immense wealth to be exploited without mercy. The stage was now irrevocably set for one of the most brutal and devastating colonial regimes in human history, a dark chapter marked by unimaginable suffering and exploitation. Once Leopold had consolidated his control over the Congo Free State, his primary focus shifted dramatically. It became a relentless pursuit of profit, driven by greed and a thirst for wealth. Initially, the focus was on ivory, a highly prized commodity. But soon, rubber took center stage, especially after the groundbreaking invention of the pneumatic tire, which created an unprecedented demand. The Congo's vast reserves of wild rubber quickly transformed into a veritable gold mine for Leopold and his associates. To maximize his profits, Leopold ruthlessly imposed a brutal system of forced labor upon the Congolese people. This oppressive system was enforced with extreme violence and cruelty by his private army, the infamous Force Publique. Villages were subjected to impossibly high quotas for rubber collection, quotas that were simply unattainable. Consequently, men were forced to venture deep into the perilous jungle for weeks on end, enduring harsh conditions and immense risks. This left their families behind, vulnerable and often facing starvation due to the absence of their primary providers. Failure to meet these exorbitant quotas resulted in horrific punishments, the most infamous being mutilation, specifically the severing of hands. This gruesome act was often carried out to account for bullets that had been used by the Force Publique, a chilling testament to their brutality. Soldiers frequently cut off hands from living individuals, not just those who had died, as a means of proving their efficiency. This barbaric practice extended to women and children as well, all in a desperate attempt to fulfill the impossible quotas demanded by their colonial overlords. Villages that resisted or failed to comply were subjected to brutal reprisals. They were burned to the ground, and their inhabitants were taken hostage. Mass killings became a routine occurrence, a horrifying consequence of Leopold's insatiable greed and the ruthless enforcement of his policies. The Congolese people lived in a constant state of terror, their lives overshadowed by the ever-present threat of violence and exploitation. Their traditional ways of life and social structures were utterly shattered, all for the sake of enriching Leopold and his cronies. The relentless quest for rubber and ivory devolved into a systematic campaign of terror, marked by unimaginable cruelty and suffering. All this brutality served to enrich a distant king, who lived in opulent luxury while the Congolese people endured unimaginable hardship. The human toll was staggering. Historians estimate the Congo's population was halved during Leopold's 23-year rule. Millions died from murder, starvation, disease, and exhaustion as traditional life collapsed. Forced labor destroyed agriculture, causing famine and making communities vulnerable to epidemics. The death toll 10 to 15 million people, one of the deadliest atrocities of the 20th century. The regime's cruelty was rooted in racism, treating Congolese as disposable resources. Generations were lost, cultures destroyed, and trauma echoed for decades. The world largely ignored this hidden Holocaust, erasing it from history books. The victims deserve remembrance, not as statistics, but as people lost to a monstrous crime. For years, King Leopold's carefully crafted propaganda machine worked tirelessly to conceal the brutal truth of his reign in the Congo. It was a deliberate campaign of misinformation, designed to portray him as a benevolent humanitarian. But cracks began to appear in this facade as some missionaries, witnessing the horrors firsthand, began reporting the widespread atrocities back home. Their accounts painted a starkly different picture. A British clerk named Edmund Morel, working for a shipping company, meticulously uncovered the sinister reality behind the Congo's lucrative rubber trade. He noticed a disturbing pattern. Ships left the Congo laden with vast quantities of valuable rubber, and returned filled with guns and ammunition, rather than trade goods, raising serious questions about the nature of the colony. This imbalance was damning proof of a brutal slave state, where the Congolese people were being exploited and terrorized for profit. Deeply disturbed by his findings, Morel made the courageous decision to quit his job and dedicate himself to exposing Leopold's crimes. He founded the Congo Reform Association and embarked on a relentless campaign to expose the horrors of the Congo Free State to the world, using every means at his disposal. Further solidifying the case against Leopold, Irish diplomat Roger Casement conducted an official investigation, and his detailed report unequivocally confirmed the widespread brutality and systematic abuse, sending shockwaves through the international community. Activists, passionate writers, and intrepid journalists bravely used powerful photographs and harrowing witness testimonies to ignite global outrage and demand justice for the Congolese people. Public protests erupted across Europe and the United States, and parliaments across the globe fiercely debated the issue, demanding action and accountability. Leopold's carefully constructed humanitarian image was utterly destroyed, replaced by the stark reality of his greed and cruelty. As international pressure relentlessly mounted, the Belgian government, facing increasing scrutiny and condemnation, could no longer ignore the overwhelming evidence of Leopold's crimes. Finally, in 1908, under immense pressure, Leopold was forced to relinquish his personal control of the Congo, surrendering it to the Belgian state. After decades of darkness and deception, the truth about the Congo Free State had finally come to light, though the scars of Leopold's reign would remain for generations to come. Leopold faced no justice. He was paid for his sacrifice and died wealthy, unpunished. Under Belgian rule, exploitation continued. Forced labor and resource extraction persisted, though the worst brutalities eased. The legacy was violence, authoritarianism, and a nation left scarred and unstable at independence in 1960. The Congo genocide faded from memory, erased by Belgian propaganda and Western indifference. This amnesia allowed colonial powers to avoid reckoning with their own crimes. Remembering Leopold's Congo is vital, a warning about unchecked power, greed, and racism. It honors the millions lost and reminds us of the ongoing struggle for justice and truth. The story forces us to confront uncomfortable history and our responsibility to remember.